Thank you for tuning into our podcast, From the Darkhorse's Mouth. Today's episode is all aboard, onboarding, and joining us is our co-pilot, Carly.
Hey, everyone.
And our guest, Stephen Harris, franchise owner of Journey Payroll and HR.
Hey, guys.
Hey.
How you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me on. I'm
Yeah.
excited.
Thanks for
for
coming
being
on.
here.
So why don't you start again about giving us kind of your journey per se.
Yeah.
No, I don't know if that's a pun. No pun intended. Where you started, where you've been, and where you're going in this as it relates to HR and your payroll company and kind of how things have evolved.
Yeah, sure. It's funny because, no one goes to school for payroll. There's no real degree for that. It's like, hey, I want to wake up and be a payroll processor. You kind of just fall into it. And once you get into the industry, it's just, you find it's really cool and a lot of fun to work with small business owners. And that's what we focus on. But I started when I was 22 years old. It's about 18 years now in the payroll industry. My father's an entrepreneur. He's a software programmer. He built a payroll tax software called MasterTax.
Okay.
And we sold that product all across the country to various payroll providers, independent payroll providers, enterprise level type companies, Harley Davidson, Starbucks, those types of guys were clients. Anyone processing large, payroll tax processing all across the country. Mm-hmm. Long story short, I started working with him when I was 22 in sales. He sold the company to ADP in 2010. So I grew up kind of grandfathered into the ADP world, which we all know is the largest payroll company in the world. They're global, they're huge. But I learned the ropes and I learned everything possible that I could, working for one of the best payroll companies out there. But I had this itch in me growing up in an entrepreneurial family and seeing my dad and my mom was involved. I was like, man, I don't know if I could be a corporate lifer. I don't know if I could just be at ADP, like great company to work for, stock, everything was awesome, great President's Club trips and all that stuff, but I just couldn't do it. And so my business partner now, her name is Jamie Anderson. Her and I were on the same team. And we had always had this vision of starting our own payroll company. We were selling MasterTax to payroll companies. We were asking all the questions. We're like, oh, you know what? We could probably do this. But at the time, my kids were just being born. They're 13 and 11 now. But at the time, they were, 1, 3, young kids. I'm just like, I don't know. My wife would kill me if I tried to start a business at that time, right? We lived in Colorado for a little bit. We spent some time there, and we met a gentleman named Kevin Welch out there, and he owned a local payroll company. In fact, I was trying to sell him MasterTax, and I was like, hey, Kevin, let's meet up for lunch or coffee. I can't remember exactly what it was, but 2 hours of that meeting, 15 minutes of it was about MasterTax. The other hour and 45 was how can we partner and expand to Phoenix and build what we've built now.
Wow,
Awesome.
Very cool.
Yeah, so it's kind of weird how the world works. You find the right people and the right partners, and they were in Fort Collins, Colorado. He wanted to expand. I told him I was moving back to Phoenix. We only spent about a year and a half in Colorado, and so for that next year and a half or so, we kind of prepped and planned for a launch, and we started our franchise in 2017 here in Phoenix, and we built the franchise agreement. It wasn't originally planned to be a franchise. It was just going to be a partnership, but legally for Jamie and I to wholly own our office and our location and run our deal, it had to be a franchise.
Okay.
And so it worked out well
because
we didn't have to start from scratch. We had some support on the back end. But we came over with 0 clients. It was very much, very real entrepreneurial journey of like, oh my gosh, is this going to work? But we're 8.5 years in now, coming up on 9 years, and we focus on Arizona-based small businesses. So it's a lot of fun. We've got a resilient community here, and I really enjoy getting to know small business owners out here in Arizona.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a great story. I mean, much like payroll, people don't usually wake up and end up in insurance either.
This is true. This is true.
So we have that common.
Relate.
It's kind of the running joke, right? Like, your ex-athletes, like, I'll just go get insurance.
Yeah,
right?
they're the only ones.
Yeah.
Although they do have some insurance specific programs now in some of the schools, but for the most part, it's either generational or somehow, some way, like me, it was through basically starvation and figuring life out.
That's about how we all have to figure
that
it out.
ended up in insurance. But so to summarize, 22 years old, started in the payroll business effectively through some software that your father developed.
Correct.
That was sold to ADP. ADP is obviously a massive company.
Yeah.
And then through that you met your current business partner. right?
Franchisor partner, yeah, he's the CEO of Journey, and then we launched the Phoenix franchise, which proved the model, and now Journey is expanding nationwide through local ownership. It's kind of their way of generating growth across the country, so that way there's vested interest in building that community and that local area of small businesses and payroll, and it's not just a call center type of environment.
Yeah, I got it. Awesome. So I mean, you've seen things at the startup small business level all the way to the mega
Yes,
business level.
yes,
And to our the topic of the podcast, all aboard, onboarding. What is are there major differences that you've seen in the onboarding process or how it needs to be managed, from the small business growing to mega shop and
yeah, like
growing?
enterprise level. Well, I will say the misconception is as a small business owner, there's no tools or resources to have cool technology and streamlined processes. Maybe 20 years ago, before the rise of technology and AI and all that type of stuff, but nowadays that stuff's at your fingertips. And there's a lot of payroll providers like Journey that are bringing that enterprise level technology that you would typically think is reserved for the Fortune 500 down to the small business level. So we bring a lot of technology and a lot of other independent payroll companies out there too. There's a lot that are cost effective that'll give you onboarding, HR tools, payroll tools for your staff. And as you're scaling your business, one of the most important pieces of retention is that first check, that first paycheck. What's the first 2 weeks of my new employer going to be
Yeah.
like, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And as an agency owner or any small business owner, if you kind of mess that up, it leaves a
Doesn't
sour.
look
It's,
good.
it's hard to come back from that,
Mhm.
and then you're wondering why your employee's not performing at a high level, and maybe they're already looking to go somewhere else. So it's crucial, just like bringing on any new client, to bring on a new employee, at a high level.
Yeah, so
Sure.
I know that when we started, and for maybe a foreseeable time after, my or our onboarding process was, here's a desk and a computer, and
Yeah.
I hope you figure it out.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Sink
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
swim, which may be good. It may be functional for the first few, but it's certainly hard to scale without systematic onboard process.
Yeah.
And so take us through just the important parts of, obviously, you had mentioned the payroll piece where, if they're not getting paid, that's a big problem.
Yeah.
But what are the pieces, obviously, that them getting paid takes, let's call it 2 to 4 weeks, right? So what's that process, the onboarding process in your mind, a successful onboarding process from like start to that, maybe like that first check?
So the pre-process, like before they start their first day, you've got your federal and state forms that they have to fill out, the onboarding piece. You've got your I-9, which is your employment eligibility form. E-Verify is a mandatory process here, at least in Arizona. I think there's 7 or 8 other states across the country that require it. But you have to go through this new hire reporting to the state and kind of gather this information from the employee. It's kind of a pain. We all remember in college when you got our first job and you have the manila folder and you're filling out the forms by hand and all that. Well,
Yes.
if you find a provider that can help you with this stuff to do this electronically, that makes that process so much easier for not only you as the employer, but the employee. And sometimes it feels like the employee is setting themselves up for payroll, setting themselves up for the HR human resource functionality and the documentation that you need. Your W-4 is your federal tax elections. The A-4 in Arizona is your state withholding tax elections, and then your direct deposit forms. Making sure you have a handbook, a job description, all of these types of documents and forms that you have that you can present to the employee will help you in the long run in case something goes wonky and you need to like fall back on certain things and policies. But if you can do this in an electronic form, send them an email, they click a link, they fill out everything electronically, it makes you look that much more professional and that you're a little bit more dialed in. And it doesn't break the bank to do it. It's usually this type of onboarding process is included with service providers nowadays. It's not an extra cost or anything like that. It's just a part of their HR stack, their HR tech stack.
Got it. So it's turned into like more of a, we'll call it like an expectation
Yeah.
almost, and you can operate at that massive company level, at a small company level, just due to technology and
Correct.
resources and things like that.
Yes, and you want to gather this information before their first day. I don't know how many times we have clients that are like, "Oh, I'm onboarding my employee today because I need to pay them for tomorrow." I'm like, they've been working with you for 2 weeks. Why are we
Oh,
waiting so
man.
long? Because everything is based on that hire date. Like E-Verify, you've got to do within 3 days of hire date. New hire reporting, you've got to do within 20 days of hire date. So there are some compliance and rules and things that you have to do when you hire those employees. So doing that process at least the week before they start, they complete their profile. Then they start, and then you have your laptop and all that ready to
Yeah.
go. Don't set it up that first day, right? Like prepare yourself, get your team ready. Hey, we've got a new team member coming on, have the technology ready, and then having some sort of checklist or, something built out so they know what to expect that first day to be like. Building out a calendar or schedule.
Yes.
What I think is crucial is getting your entire team on board that we've got a new employee coming. There's nothing worse when you have a new employee starting and half your team doesn't even know.
Right.
So communicate that with your team
Yes.
so you can give them the warm welcome, right? So culture is a big piece of that too.
Huge.
Yeah, that was going to be kind of my next question is, obviously they do the paperwork.
Yes.
Hopefully they're doing it before and not after.
Yes.
But once they do the paperwork, then it's like, okay, so what's the culture fit look like, and how can you incorporate the culture into that onboarding process, or how would you recommend that it be done?
Well, I mean, so for me, when we hire our team, our office is at Central Indian School. We're here local. We bring our team in, and we really do spend that first day. We give them a calendar. They spend the first couple hours with me as the owner, so that way they kind of get an idea of like, we talk about the vision and like what we're doing. It's just very high level,
Yeah,
not to
that's
overwhelm
cool.
them, but just to spend some time. And then we'll make sure the tech is all set up and they feel comfortable. And then we'll kind of have the team have one-on-ones with them or sit down with them. And, it's pretty easy day one. We don't want to overwhelm them too much. But once they get through that first week, we've got a nice calendar of like, here's what to expect day 1, day 2, day 3. So we give them a full expectation set for that first week. And then we always send like flowers or something to their house.
Oh
at
my
the end.
Really?
gosh. That's
Yeah,
so
like the
lovely.
That's a
Friday.
good idea, Carly.
Hey.
Yeah,
I didn't
so
get
like-
flowers when I started here.
Yeah.
You still don't get flowers.
These little something,
I
right?
know,
Like, hey,
that's so
congrats on your first
awesome.
week. And,
Yeah.
we're small business. So we're competing with everybody.
Right.
Yeah.
That means a lot.
Yeah.
I was like, I've got a lot of leftover Halloween candy that my son
Yeah,
has.
that might
We're
flip-
start
Melt
shipping
it
that
on
out.
the-
Flip
the
some
front
Skittles and
porch.
Kit Kats their way.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah, right now it's in
Oh.
my fridge and I just pick at it every
Oh, it's the
45
worst.
minutes.
Right.
We've got a bowl of like candy corn. I'm like, this has to get out of the house. That
Yeah.
is my my nemesis there.
Someone told me, because I like a couple candy corns here and there, but
Yeah.
then someone referred to it that you're chewing on a candle. And I'm like, now every
Oh,
time I eat
that's-
it, I'm like, oh, I feel like I'm eating a candle.
I know.
But it's delicious.
Part of me wants to stop, but part of me is also like, it's so good though.
Yeah, it's such a
It's like the
corn
candle
is so
aftertaste.
weird.
Yeah,
it's-
exactly.
And ever since I said that. Anyway, I digress. But back to the flowers. That
Yes.
is,
We've
how
even-
is that received with
Very
your
well
team
received. The
members?
team
Yeah.
loves it. We always get a text or an email that night. Like they don't wait till the Monday after coming in. Like, hey, thank you so much. They're like, oh my gosh, like no one's ever done
Yeah.
this. And again, as a small business owner, we're competing with for high quality people, and you are building a family. Like as
Right.
cliche as that is,
No, I love
taking
that.
care of your team and meeting them where they are and getting to know them as a human being and not just an employee.
Right.
We actually try our hardest to refrain from the term employee or staff.
Yeah, okay.
We're team members, and
Yeah.
it is an all hands on deck. Even when you're starting your business from scratch and it's just you're doing everything. You're wearing every hat. But when you start hiring your team and scaling, like you're still doing everything.
Right.
Everyone's doing it. We cross train everybody. No one has a single lane. Everyone's learning all areas of the business. At least I think that's the best approach.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. I think that's smart, and that made me think of just another question. So obviously you've got your hybrid work
Yes.
environment, and
Correct.
so how do you manage that the same or differently in just what you had described as the culture and kind of the family aspect of things?
Yeah. COVID taught us a lot, like many businesses. I remember when we first started the first few years, we do a client training. Every client for their first payroll, we sit with them. I was doing this back then, and I would travel to every single client's office or site or whatever, and sometimes 3 in a day. I was like, I don't know how I didn't get into a car accident every single day. It was insane. And then COVID taught us that we can't be in person. And then we realized, oh my gosh, we can train people virtually. We
Yeah.
can do this is a no-brainer. And what we figured out too is, especially in Arizona, it's very wide. We all know, like big city,
Spread out.
it's very spread out. So
Mhm.
we have Central Indian School, but my team is 30, 40, sometimes 50 minutes, an hour away, easy.
Mm-hmm.
And so we realized like coming into the office every single day is challenging. And I thought, okay, as we scale, we don't need everybody in the office every day. We just need at least 2 people in the office every day.
Right.
So we built out a hybrid work from home schedule for everybody that worked for the business, but also worked for each team member in their life. And we actually asked them the question, which days would work best for you? And we worked with the entire team and we've built out a plan. It took a couple of months to kind of figure it out and make sure it would work. But when you have a great team that's bought in what you're trying to do, and they all can cover for each other if something comes up, there's just nothing better. But it takes time. Retention and turnover is a real thing, and it's very
Right.
costly. But when you've got a team that you can kind of figure out who's going to be, best team members for your business, then it seems to work out. So from the hybrid perspective, back to your question, we use Microsoft products. So we use Microsoft Teams. We do virtual calls, or we'll use the chat.
Mm-hmm.
I think 50% of the chat is business. The other 50% is messing around. And
Yeah.
and that's, I think, what it is, allowing that to a certain degree. We don't get too much into the opinions of outside factors, politics, religion, things
Yeah.
like that, right? Because
Smart.
that can get a little sticky
Messy.
sometimes.
Yeah.
But if there's something funny going on, or we'll share GIFs or memes or
Yes.
whatever, that stuff is totally cool.
Mhm.
And so we promote that. We're like, hey, be yourself, be your authentic self. There's no corporate red tape here.
Mhm.
We want real people who
Yeah.
love what they do.
Yeah.
And that's so that kind of makes me think of what I'd refer to as like virtual team building.
Yeah.
Right. Is there any and this is just something that came to mind, is there any because you've got, obviously they can chat together and make jokes
Yeah.
and stuff like that, but have you done or heard of any like virtual team building events?
We haven't. We tried a little bit when we were 100% remote. I think we were about a year like everyone else, where we didn't go in the office at all. Because we do have a home base, when we do team events, we're in person.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
we work a lot of times virtually, and communicate virtually, but we really do think that in-person stuff is still extremely beneficial and crucial for team environment. We personally don't have anybody outside of Arizona that we've hired, so we haven't run into that just yet. But what I have seen from clients is they have participated in some of those virtual team events, and it goes back to the buy-in of the business.
Mhm.
Like, if you're excited about what you do every day, if you're excited about waking up and being a part of this specific team, you're going to go all in, and even though it's virtual or in person, you're still just going to be like, I'm enjoying hanging out with you, I'm enjoying talking with you. And I'm okay with some quirky event that you're putting on
Yeah.
to kind of bring us all together.
Mhm.
That's cool. Yeah, we've used internally a what's it called, Carly? Kahoot.
Oh, I haven't heard of that one.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's trivia games, and we do virtual happy hours, and we all play a game and answer questions, and then whoever wins gets just an Amazon gift card or
Yeah, yeah.
Starbucks gift card or something like that. So it just kind of brings everyone together.
Yeah, and
for
that
an
seems
hour.
to be very well received, right? We get a
Yeah,
high
I
level
love
of
it. It's so
adoption. I
fun.
wasn't on the
I
last
get
one,
so
so
competitive. We did Halloween trivia.
yeah, it's kind of one of those things like the bar game where they're like, you've got the 4 answers, and then it's the amount of time it takes you to answer it is how many points
Oh,
you get.
yeah.
So it's kind of structured in that manner,
Yeah.
which again, that just made me think of it. That's been
Yeah,
pretty
those
cool.
are fun games. We do have our team in Colorado, our headquarters, and so we're all involved in the same team system. We do have somebody that puts on wellness, challenges, daily stuff like that, which is kind of cool. Like,
Yeah.
okay, everyone drink 100 ounces of water today, or
Oh,
where
that's
you
kinda
at?
cool.
And,
I like
or
that.
all right, it's your midday break, stand up and stretch, or whatever, right? And
Give them little badges.
yeah, and they give them kudos. We do football pick'ems, sports things.
Yeah,
We do the
that's
March
fun.
Madness brackets, those types of things. Those are always fun.
That's cool. So we've talked about what I don't know, let's call it like the do you have, I guess the question I'm trying to ask is, do you have milestones in the onboarding? Like, you got the first 30 days, which covers, the paperwork and kind of the introduction, all
Mhm.
that. And then do you, from your point of view, do you milestone it out like 30, 60, 90 days, 1 year?
Yeah, we do. So, and I've seen a lot of companies do this, and I've also seen a lot of companies don't track it. And I think if the ones that are tracking it and setting those expectations up front and say, hey, this is where I think you'll be at 90 days. Where do you think you'll be at 90 days? And this is where you should be. And then holding the accountability to that, I think just adds to the tenure and the longevity and the loyalty and the accountability of that person. So yeah, we do a 30, 60, 90. We also do 1 year and 2 year.
Okay.
Because in our industry, payroll is so complex. There's so many rules changing, especially taxes, and it's a software system that you have to learn. If you don't have experience in that specific software, you may know payroll, but you got to know where to go and what to do. It's a very robust, complex system. And so I always tell my team, hey, after year 1, you're going to think you know everything. But by year 2, you're going to realize you didn't know anything. It takes 2 years in our industry to really get someone comfortable in their role where they're working autonomously, making decisions and all this stuff for themselves. and you're trying to build unicorns. At the end of the day, what you're trying to do is develop unicorns. You may find them off the street.
Mm-hmm.
You can develop them. It does take a lot of time. But the more unicorns you can have on your team that can operate efficiently without you as the owner involved, is then you have the ability to scale and work on the revenue growth and the sales growth and all of those types of things. But you have to meet them where they are. You have to understand where their limitations are, where you think their floor is, and then how do you raise that floor to another level, and then build that out, and then how do you raise it up a little, and having the patience between you and them and not putting too much pressure to say, hey, if you don't do this, you're not going to get here.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the carrot and the stick method. It's like, what's the motivation? Am I motivated by the food in front of me, or am I motivated by the punishment that I'm going to get if I don't do it?
Yeah.
And we operate with, let's put the carrot in front of you and say, this is where you could be. Do you want to get there? Because we would love to see you there. This is where we think it's going to happen.
That's really cool. So I like the unicorns.
Yeah.
So how do we find more unicorns?
That's hard. I've got a couple. We got our like third hire. She's our director of operations. She's been with us coming on 7 years, and we started our business less than 9 years ago. Right.
Yeah.
So she was like within the first year and a half, and I was like, oh my gosh, like we've got to do whatever it takes to keep.
Right.
Frankie's our director of operations. She's the one that runs our office, and she's amazing. But it's during the onboarding piece, it's hard to see up front, but you can tell within 30 days. Within 30 days, if you've got someone who's a self-starter, self-accountable, self-disciplined, who has the awareness to just be like, something's off, and question that, as opposed to just being a yes person.
Right.
You don't really want a ton of yes people. Yes, it's nice to have, but it doesn't help you grow.
Right.
So you want people that are kind of challenge your current processes, especially if you're, exactly. Because if you're a new business owner, or you're trying to build these processes out, like you don't know everything, and if you pretend to know everything, it's not going to suit you well. So being open and recognize that you don't know everything, you're bringing people in, you're hiring them to scale your business, and you're doing this on purpose to grow and find holes to make yourself better, to set the foundation for massive success later.
Yeah, that's awesome. So this person 7 years ago, I forgot.
Frankie.
Yes,
Frankie. Yes, Frankie. Did Frankie have previous payroll experience?
No, she came from the staffing industry. So the story she tells me, like, I think complexity in payroll is a little chaotic at year end. She's like, this is like hanging out on the beach when you compare it to staffing.
Walk in the park.
Yes. Yeah. So she came from a world that was a bit more chaotic than ours. So she already kind of had that. But yeah, we had to teach her payroll, and we had to kind of help her with the system and all that. But again, during the onboarding, I don't care which role you have in operations. And specifically, I'm talking about operations. We can get into the sales side too. You're going to learn the ins and outs of everything. I'm going to teach you how to set up a new client. I'm going to teach you how to train a new client, what their back end looks, or what their front end looks like. I'm also going to teach you what our back end looks like to process payrolls, to print checks, to courier, to package checks. You're going to do everything. So if someone is out, you can cover for them. That helps protect me in my business. Something doesn't fall through the cracks, but it also helps them learn the ins and outs of the entire operation. So that way, down the road, as part of onboarding, if you do this down the road, it gives them more pathways and opportunities to maybe change directions. We've recreated roles for, I don't know how many people on our team, because their skill set didn't quite match what we thought when we hired them the role for. And then we realized by cross-training, like, wow, we hired you to be payroll support specialist, but you're really good at training new clients. Let's move you over to implementation. And we figured that out 6 months later by cross-training.
Yeah.
And so that was a pretty neat process for us. And we didn't plan for it. We just thought that was the right thing to do. And then it ended up working out really well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I've always had the message has always been, we don't hire employees, we hire future business owners. And so, our mindset has always been kind of what you just described, like, hey, let's train you on everything, cross-train you on everything. And then ultimately, as you start getting more people, just like you had said, you start to realize, like, okay, you've got actually a great skill set over here, or the other person's like kind of poking holes in something. You're like, okay, well, plug the hole. That sounds like a great idea. And before you know it, you're starting to create these solutions, which also, creates, that buy-in, that culture, and that family, because now you're kind of working together to solve problems versus the, kind of the stick, that you said, where if you don't do this, this is going to happen.
Right. Yeah, I think that's where, I think the threats don't jack. I mean, this is like baby boomer stuff. Like it's a different generation, right? It's like the generation my dad grew up in, right? It's like, I think if you show them what's possible and the opportunities in front of them, they'll either go after it and take it, or you'll find out real quick they don't want that, and maybe they're not the right person for your team, and that you'll figure that out, right?
Yeah.
You can't force somebody to do something they don't want to do, but you can show them the opportunities that are in front of them to make it happen for themselves.
Yeah. It
Yeah, that's
also
awesome.
empowers people and
Yes.
then allows them to be autonomous. And you, as a business owner, can go, okay, yeah, let's go drum up
Yes.
some more business.
I
So
think the
it's
hardest
great.
thing too is letting go a little bit of
Yes.
like being like, hey, okay, you can handle this. Oh gosh,
I
can
know.
you handle it? Like, oh my gosh, I don't
Oh,
know. Like, am I gonna get the call to put the fire out now? Like,
yeah.
but you have to let that. You have to
Mm-hmm.
let that go. You have to put in the trust, and you brought them in for a reason, and you have to trust your gut that you chose the right person, and let them do the work. And they're only going to go as far as the systems and trainings that you give them. But if you trust that, then you can't jump in and save them. You have to kind of, if they ask the question, instead of responding with the answer, say, hey, well, what do you think you should do? Have you tried this or this?
Mm-hmm.
Or take your best shot and then I'll review it or whatever. Instead of just, all right, never mind, let me just do it. I'll knock it out. Like, that was the hardest thing for me, was complete. I mean,
Agreed. Yeah.
I mean, I know our software in and out, like with my eyes closed. It's not someone asked me a question, I know exactly where to go. I can
Mhm.
tell me over the phone. That was the hardest thing for me, was not jumping in and like, okay, try this, try
Yeah.
that, and then let me know how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, it takes longer, but the return is eventually they'll know it, and then they won't have to ping you, and they'll just be able to knock it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here's another question. So when they're coming to you, that's easy, right? But how
Yes.
do you identify it if they're not?
So Frankie and I call it the cheat code. We're trying to get them to not use the cheat code and come to us. But how we identify is when clients reach out to us directly.
Right.
So if they're reaching out to us directly, then we're kind of like, okay, someone either isn't paying attention or maybe messed up something, but it's okay. And we're never upset with mistakes. Like,
Right.
we're human. And and I've sent emails to clients. Like, my role now is kind of, I get involved when there's some fires and some complexities that, really I'm the person to do it. My response to the client, especially if it's a mistake on our end, is like, hey, look, we strive to be perfect. We do everything we can to bring a high level of service, but mistakes happen. I understand this is frustrating for you. I understand that this caused an issue on your side. We're working on some things internally to identify how to not let this ever happen again. Communicate, here's the resolution, here's what we're doing moving forward. And just letting them know that, like, hey, we're trying to be, and we strive to be perfect, but it's impossible. It's an impossible ask. And I think when you're real with clients and not falling on the sword so much, but to the
Right.
point where you are taking ownership of the mistake, you are understanding their frustrations, but then you're giving them a resolution and then saying, hey, like, don't put that expectation on us to be absolutely perfect as well. I think when you try to build those partnerships, it does help, and it builds retention. Clients do respect it, and they understand mistakes happen.
Yeah, and I think them, just knowing that, obviously things are going to happen,
Yeah.
but there's a team of support behind them
Correct.
to correct it.
Yes.
And as long as the communication is fast,
Yes.
right? You never want anyone to sit there. But you had brought up, obviously, people make mistakes, and what are some common mistakes that you've seen companies make during just the onboarding process? And then maybe, I know that payroll, of course, is a piece of it, and so maybe the mistake just in the onboarding that we've been talking about, then also as it relates to payroll.
The biggest one I see is misclassifying employees.
Okay.
So we see a lot of businesses that was like, oh, I just 1099 them. And the difference between, so you have a 1099 contractor, which is a Form W-9. All you're doing is gathering a federal identification number or social. A 1099 is really like a vendor or a partner or someone that's doing project-based work for you. And it really should be a business. It shouldn't be like, if you're ever receiving a Form W-9 from someone personally, that can cause red flags for the Department of Labor, because they don't get any benefits. They get straight pay. There's no taxes. There's no unemployment benefits. There's nothing. It's like paying a vendor, paying your marketing agency or whatever, right? W-2 employee does have all these protections. You're splitting the tax bill with them. You're paying for unemployment insurance. So if they do leave your company, they can apply for unemployment benefits. You can build out health plans, 401k plans, all that type of stuff. You can't do that for 1099, but the employer pays more for W-2 because you're paying the other half of Social Security, Medicare, you're paying unemployment insurance, right? So it does cost more, but a 1099 person, if you misclassify them and they truly are a W-2 employee, they're coming in your office, you're giving them a laptop, you're giving them a uniform, you're setting their schedule, and you're doing 1099 because you want to save a couple $100 on taxes per payroll. Well, as soon as that person leaves, and if they thought they were an employee and they go apply for unemployment, And the Department of Labor say, well, you've never been a W-2 employee.
Uh-oh.
Then all of a sudden that opens the door for the employer to now get audited, back taxes, misclassifications, huge penalties. We see it a lot in the small business community is like, well, I don't really have the money, so I'm just going to 1099 them. And it's like, I get it. But at the end of the day, like, you've got to really pay attention to how you're classifying your employees, because the penalties are astronomical.
So my first, I think at least 2 or 3 employees back when I was 23, I didn't know anything about anything, you know,
Yeah.
just going, I hired them 1099.
Yeah.
And none of them paid their taxes for like 1
Right.
to
Because they were
3
also
or
young.
4
Right.
years.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and honestly, no one gave me advice. You know, even the people, you know, at the time I owned a farmer's agency, and you know, it wasn't like you need to do W-2 or you need to do 1099. I just knew that, you know, 1099 was, you know, cheaper
It's cheaper
per
yeah.
se, and it was okay to do, and you
Yeah.
know, they're responsible for their taxes, and the fact of the matter is that they don't pay those taxes because they're
Right.
getting all the money in, and then that creates a subsequent problem, which, you know, eventually you know, was cleaned up, and then I was like, yeah, okay, we can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
But people just don't know, and you don't
They
know as a
don't.
small business, and I see those questions all the time on the message boards, like, should I hire 1099 or W-2? And I'm like, don't do it, don't
Yeah.
do the 1099. I mean, there's really only a very small classification of you know, employees that really should be
Yeah.
1099. So yeah, I'm right there with you on that point.
Yeah, and it's hard. There's no education really on it. There is a little quiz, or like you can go to irs.gov and say, hey, how do I know if someone's 1099 versus W-2? And they do have like some prompts, and you answer some questions, and it'll give you some idea of what you should do. But really, a 1099 person, the way to look at it is, are they their own business owner? Because that's really what they are. They're self-employed, and you're paying them, call it $1,000 every week. They're making $52,000 a year. You give them a 1099, say, hey, I paid you $52,000. Well, that's actually considered revenue, and they are applying, or they're filing their taxes, and they're filing self-employment tax, which is still 15.3% on top of the federal and state incomes. So that 15.3%, when you look at a W-2, is your Social Security, Medicare tax. It's the same percentage, but that is now split between the employer. The other half is deducted from the employee. So to your point, when you're paying them straight pay, they're responsible for filing that self-employment tax. And if they don't do that, but you're filing the 1096 and the forms to the IRS, as you should, saying, hey, this is what I paid somebody. If they're not doing it on their end, then that's where the discrepancies come, and nothing can reconcile. And that potentially comes back to you as the business owner and be like, hey, what's going on with these? You know? And so our rule of thumb is, if you are trying to hire 1099 and they fill out a W-9 form, and it's their personal name, and they're filling out with their Social Security number, it's automatically a red flag. Small business owners have very minimal risk of an audit because they're small, right? They're going after big fish.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, if it's a 1099 that's filling out with, like, you know, Darkhorse LLC and the EIN, then yeah, that's probably a 1099, right? Because they're their own. It's really treated for business owners and LLCs and vendors and partners and things like that.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is, like, I don't want to have, you know, people that are working for me that all of a sudden, just through human nature, aren't paying their taxes. And
Right.
I mean, that was the biggest thing for me. I was like, well, forget the money that I'm saving. I didn't realize that the human element is, you know, I'm getting this check with no taxes taken out, and even if, you know, I'm supposed to be responsible for it, I just, you know, I'm just human and living life, and you spend that money and you worry about it later, and then later comes, and then later comes again the next year, and then the next year, and then I'm looking at it like, it didn't make me feel good, let's put it that way, when I you know, actually, like, kind of put things together. I was like, yeah, that's probably not the way to do it.
Well, and as a business owner, if you're doing this, it's actually a disservice to them, because if they were to go get a loan, a mortgage, they're looking for W-2 income. They're not going to take a 1099 income as well received as if they were receiving W-2, because W-2 has protections. They know they're paying in taxes. This is actual income. 1099s are just, it's revenue from the business. It's a totally different animal in terms of trying to apply for loans and different things that you want to do, and reportable income. So as a business owner, if you're doing 1099s all the time, and those guys aren't filing their taxes, it makes it challenging for them later in life, saying, oh yeah, I made $100,000 this year. Like, well, no, you didn't. Where's your W-2? Like, show me where you made that. Oh, well, I never filed taxes, never did anything. You have no paper trail that you made this money.
Right. So I think probably the last question that I have is maybe second to last, I'm not sure, but related to, like, metrics, right? I'm a big metrics, big number person. You know, you've got your onboarding, you've got your single person, you've got the checkpoints at 30, 60, 90. 1 year and 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any metrics, or what metrics do you pay attention to as it relates to the successful onboarding process over that, let's call it up to 2 years, and then the long-term retention of that employee over, 5 years?
Yeah, I mean, so we don't have a ton of longevity past 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Business 8.5. For companies that are, that are working, that have been in business a long time and that have employees for them for 20 years. I think just having at least from the business owner themselves, if you're a small business, having those every 6 months at least at a minimum, those check-ins, those one-to-ones, that, hey, what's going on, what's working, what's not. We don't have anything super formal in terms of metrics of like how someone's doing outside of client support calls and emails and things like that. Like, hey, if clients are reaching out often for delayed responses or whatever, then we'll have conversations, things like that. But I guess to answer your question, we have the flexibility as small business owners to really tap into who the person is and really be a part of their life as much as they're part of ours building our businesses, to understand where they're at and what they're trying to achieve. And tenure and loyalty and all that just comes from, it's never forced, it's just from how you act and how you treat people.
Yeah.
But we just schedule time, we carve out quarterly events, we do charity work around town, we do holiday stuff, we do stuff in the summer. We're involved in terms of like being present, maybe not always in the office every week,
Right.
but we're present in their lives and we're checking in, we're always accessible and things like that. So to answer your question on the metrics piece, I don't have a ton of personal experience with like actual documents and things
Yeah.
that graphs and things
Yeah,
like
okay.
that. I know clients use things like Trainual, which is a great
Mhm.
software platform. Guys here local, Chris Ronzio. I know a lot of people that use that platform. It's a great tool. And it builds out your entire training program for new hires. And there's a ton of KPIs that are built in there. There's other softwares and other providers that you can use for that too. But I think if you're just genuine, authentic, and you're there for your team, they're going to want to be there for you and they're going to want to be involved. And I think if you're, 6 months in, a year from in, you're asking about their goals outside of the office, outside of their career. I'm a big advocate of opportunity and helping people become more aware of that. I am not going to sit here and say that my team is going to be a payroll specialist for the rest of their life. And I tell them that. I was like, I think if you're a payroll specialist for the rest of your life, I think you're doing yourself a disservice. What do you truly want? What are your real dreams? What can we do here to help build the foundation for what that's going to look like later in life? And I'm okay with that. And I think when you approach your team that way, they get buy-in because they care. It shows that you care more about them personally than it does you just trying to grow your business. And then it ends up in turn growing your business.
Right.
Yeah.
It's very very inspirational,
Yeah.
right? And people being emotionally enrolled in kind of the company, but where they can go in that company, and it's not just a company thing. It's hey, how can we
Help
how can we
you.
create something for you, or what inspires you?
Yeah, and it doesn't always have to be like, what's the next step of a promotion? Because you only have so many roles as a small business owner that you can provide, right? We can create different things and do different things, but it's what's within my role. What can I do to crush my role? Like, what are the outside the box, like side projects that I can do to crush my role and get excited about doing something new today or doing something different? Doesn't mean like, oh, I'm never going to be payroll manager or director of operations because we only need one and we have one, right? So like that person that you look at as a perceived ceiling, it's like, no. Like, we can do different things within your role. Like maybe go on site with a client and sit with them for 30 minutes to run their payroll or whatever. Like just do something a little bit different. What are the outside the box 2 steps instead of one type of situations that you can do to crush your role? And that's growth. And then what's the personal growth aspect we can build into your career? And so that's what we try to promote. And I think as a small business owner, you have a much stronger opportunity to do that with your team than you do in corporate America.
Yeah. Corporate America kind of gets to the, it kind of gets so big that, a lot of people get lost in the mix, which allows the small businesses, like us to kind of get up and go.
Right.
It kind of creates that opportunity. So it's interesting how that dynamic, works.
Absolutely. And when we hire, I see a lot of people trying to hire on experience. We've done it too. I'm telling you what, every single person I think there's only one person that came in with prior payroll experience. We totally switched our mindset of hiring people instead of hiring the experience,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 1,000%.
You can
And
develop.
we look,
Mhm.
we've tried both, and
Mhm.
Same.
it's
Yeah.
certainly to develop. So the thing is that to develop people is work.
Yes.
It's much easier to think like, hey, you have an insurance license, now let's bring you in to sell insurance.
Correct.
But the reality of it is I equate it to driving. Like, just because you have a driver's license doesn't mean you can drive.
It's a good analogy.
you know and so I'd rather bring in the person that maybe doesn't have a license or that just got it and just develop them
Yes.
versus try to find the plug and play fit that's maybe been doing it a while, because for the most part the people that are really, really good at what they do and happy where they are stay.
Yes.
And you can get a few of those people in here and there, but it's challenging.
Yes.
It's almost the it seems like the development side would be more challenging, but really when you think about the amount of time and turnover and everything you go to bring in someone that's already got experience, like maybe that's actually the shortcut.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of times they come with bad habits or
Yeah.
different things. Like, we've had people come in from ADP or Paychecks. We're like, oh, great. They have all this payroll experience. And we're like, oh my gosh. I remember it's like just a job to them, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's like, no, we can't have just a job to them type of
Right.
people. We need people that are going to go above and beyond and really
Mhm.
care about, running payroll for our clients, just like it's their own business. And so I think any small business owner has to realize that you don't need all the experience in the world. You just need good people.
Yes,
That's-
people are going to be good wherever they're at,
Right.
if they're good people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, I think that's the
Wonderful.
last question I had. Carly, what else do you have?
No. Well, back to Journey Payroll and HR. You talked about, because at one point, we were very small, and ADP was like, no, thank you.
Yeah.
We won't work with you. Even though they did have a small business unit.
I'm
at one
surprised they
time.
turned you down. They're usually,
They did work with us for a while, but then they kind of went back. And
Mhm.
sorry, ADP, you were great. But to the small business owner who's looking for a payroll service and HR help and whatnot,
Yep.
what should they look for?
so really it's identifying their customer service. Like, is it 1-800-payroll or do I have a dedicated rep?
Okay.
If it's 1-800-payroll, it's challenging. I mean, small, especially if you're like a local HVAC company or in the trades or, and you're like, I'm on the go all the time. I just need to know how to set up a deduction or how to send out a new hire link to my new employee. And if you can't navigate that in the system and you have a question, something as simple as that, and then you got to wait on hold for 2 hours, it's brutal. And so the first question is, what's the service level? And maybe ask for a reference or two. And then I may be biased, but I think if you can find someone that has great service and they're local, it gives a little bit more of accountability to, like, I can literally drive to your office and talk to you
Mhm.
and say, hey, I need some help. Versus, a global or national publicly traded company. We've all worked. It's like, your local bank versus Chase Bank or whatever from
Sure.
a business. It's all your perspective. But I
Mhm.
would say the biggest question to ask would be, who's my service rep? How's the customer service once I'm onboarded? Because usually they'll have someone dedicated to the implementation and the
Mhm.
onboarding. You're like, oh, this is great. I'm
Yes.
onboarded. Well, now what happens after you're onboarded? Right?
1-800.
Yes, you're just left to figure it out.
Yes.
And so that would be the first question I'd ask.
Okay.
And then after that, it would just be like, what types of integrations do you have? Like, maybe down the road, if I want to add benefits or 401k, or if I want to, hook up my accounting system like QuickBooks or workers' comp, or, are you able to integrate with these different things outside of payroll and outside of HR? Or do I need to go find other providers for all these things? And if I do need to go find other providers, can you at least integrate so that way it's just it feels like one-stop shop? So I would ask those questions. Like, as you're thinking down the road, most business owners, I would imagine, are starting businesses to provide not only for themselves and their family, but
Mhm.
for the team that they're bringing on. And when
Mhm.
you're onboarding new hires, you want to give them the best benefits you possibly can afford and
Right.
do, and get creative. So if you're going to do those types of things, if payroll's where it starts, but then what are the ancillary things that I can add to that?
Yeah.
And can that provider handle that growth?
Right.
Very good. Thank you for
Yep.
answering that.
Yeah, of
Mhm.
course.
That's all I have.
Cool.
I mean, we could talk forever.
Yeah.
I'm
We
sure,
could.
but
Mm-hmm.
Did we miss anything?
No, I think the onboarding experience should be a breeze. It shouldn't be hard for either side. Anything these days should be electronic. The manila folder, you can be able to just rip that up. But build the culture with your team, tap in, get to know them, be involved in their lives, and they'll repay you tenfold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sunflowers.
Send
Yeah, there you
flowers.
go. That's
We
good.
even sent a 6-pack of beer to one guy because
That's
we knew he was a
There
big
you go.
craft beer fan.
Yeah.
We learned that in the first week. We're like, oh, we're going to send you some local beers. And he loved it. You know,
Oh,
so.
that's
great.
great.
That's
Yeah.
so awesome.
That's
yeah.
great.
Think outside the box.
Yes, exactly.
Love it.
Yeah. So we like to end every show on a Ask Me Anything segment. So it's just basically ask me anything, business or personal, and I'll do my best to answer.
Okay. So when I was waiting to jump in the room here outside in your lobby, you've got a couple of articles, and I was reading through some of that. You've got multiple businesses.
Mm-hmm.
You've got plenty of employees, but like you said from the beginning, it was kind of from scratch. Well, one of the things that the quotes in the article up there was basically you look at challenges as an opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
So as an advocate for opportunity and learning from your failures and win or learn mentality, share an example of when you were first getting going. What was the biggest challenge you ran into, and what did you learn from it to resolve that going forward as you scaled?
Well, that's a great question. And so if you want to talk about the first thing, so I moved to Arizona at age of 23, again, through starvation and just trying to figure life out. I ended up in the insurance industry, right? And when I started in the insurance industry, I had $500 to my name. Dad wrote me a check for an emergency $500. And I started with Farmers Insurance. They gave me a shot. I had wait tables all throughout college. I had seasonal management experience where I'd drive this huge truck of artwork to like Chicago, and they'd give me like 10, 15 employees, and I'd manage the whole thing. I didn't really realize how valuable it was at the time, but it was pretty valuable in retrospect. And so Farmers saw my resume, brought me in. I understood residual income, understood the amount of success I could have, and so I ran with it. But the challenge I had is I was 23 years old.
Yeah.
I had no warm market, being in Arizona.
Yeah.
I had no target market because Farmers wants people 35 to 65, 2 homes, etc.
Yeah.
I had no experience in insurance, and I had no money.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Challenge accepted.
yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, so that was kind of like the first like, what do I do? But I did have a lot of ambition. I had a lot of work ethic, and I basically the way it started is they had a 90-day, can you cut it or not, to where they give you access to the systems, to basically the brand, the systems. They didn't give you any money. It was all on my own. And so I was working 2 jobs at the time. And it's like, okay, so you've got 90 days to write, 30 home policies and cross-sell 3 life insurance
So those
policies.
are some pretty hard set metrics.
Especially given the dynamic, right?
Yeah.
And so they effectively gave me, I used some of the $500 to buy a lead list. And, it's basically like, here's a phone, here's a lead list, and start calling. Now, I'm naturally more of an introverted person. And for me, just like a lot of people probably deal with this, to pick up the phone at that time and make those calls was terrifying, terrible. It just, but I just worked through it, consistency every single day, 3 hours a day, didn't matter, Monday through Friday, Saturday. If I wasn't working, I was calling.
Yeah.
And then eventually, I got over it, and I got good at it, and I started to have success. And so that was, to answer your question, the first time that had happened. And then I'll add another part to it, which I think is just critical to understanding, is so in, fast forward 4 years later, I'm one of the top home and auto insurance writers in the state. Not quite the nation yet, but at least the state.
Nice.
Maybe the nation, I don't know. But I was doing pretty well. And then the economic downturn hit, the mortgage crisis. And I was losing business faster than I could write it. And I remember going to my mentor and saying, like, what do I do? And he said, well, have you ever tried commercial insurance? And I said, no. I said, how do I do that? He said, well, pick 3 verticals that you think you may have interest in and start marketing towards those. So I picked, apartments, commercial real estate, and restaurants. And for whatever reason, I just really took to the commercial property market. And I looked at that obstacle, which could have went the other way. I could have folded up shop. I could have just sat there. I could have done nothing. But I looked at that obstacle as an opportunity to do and learn something different.
Yeah.
And within the next 4 years, I was top 5 in the United States out of 15,000 agents for selling
Amazing.
commercial insurance.
Nice job, man.
Thank you. And it's that same mindset that has inspired the growth of these other companies that I have.
Yeah.
So like, for example, Darkhorse, I wanted to give, we talked about development and bringing on, entry-level people or people with no experience. Well, eventually they get to a point to where maybe they want to do it for themselves.
Yeah.
So I figured rather than have them leave, why don't I build the path to ownership?
Yeah.
Which is how Darkhorse came to be.
That's awesome.
So
That's awesome. It's giving people opportunity, and you learn from that too. And it's like, don't run and hide. Just pivot and learn.
Right.
Just pivot and learn. You've got your mission. You know what you want. You know where your North Star is.
Mhm.
You know what you're trying to get to. Maybe not super clear, but you know you're not stopping.
Yeah, I think as long as you move forward, people get paralyzed and people worry about all the things that could go wrong or could happen. And the reality of it is only a small percentage of that maybe actually happens.
Right.
And really the barrier to getting through it is you just got to keep going.
Just keep going.
And just moving forward, and you'll figure it out.
Yeah.
You'll figure it out. So, great question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you coming on. This was cool. It's a lot of fun. I always like to, now I understand why, when the computer wasn't here and Carly's doing the onboarding, why she's melting down. I'm like, who cares? It's a computer. They can wait until tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah.
See?
So I understand all that. And, thanks for being a part of the podcast.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah,
Very
thanks
nice.
for joining
It was
us.
awesome. It's a lot of fun.
Appreciate it. Thank you for tuning in to our podcast from the Darkhorse's mouth. If you want to learn more about us, go to darkhorseinsurance.com.
Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn at Darkhorse Insurance Brokers, and email any questions to podcast@darkhorseinsurance.com. Thank you.